Have you ever wondered why some men fear being alone while others seem to thrive in solitude? Why do so many people associate being single with loneliness, as if a man without a girlfriend is incomplete? What if the truth is the complete opposite? What if solitude is the most powerful state a man can be in? Stay with me until the end of this video and you'll discover why a man who embraces solitude holds an advantage that most people will never understand. By the end, you'll see why mastering life starts with mastering yourself. Most men are conditioned from childhood to believe that success includes relationships, validation, and constant companionship. Society pushes the idea that a man needs a girlfriend, a partner, someone to complete him. And so men chase relationships not because they genuinely want them, but because they fear the alternative. They fear being alone with themselves. But a man who learns to live alone, who understands the power of solitude, reaches a different level of strength, one that few ever achieve. He isn't running from silence. He isn't searching for external validation. He is focused. He is free. There is a reason why the greatest thinkers, leaders, and innovators of history had long periods of solitude. They understood something that most people ignore. When you are alone, you are forced to face yourself. You can no longer hide behind distractions. There's no one else to blame for your failures, no one else to lean on when you feel weak. In solitude, you either break or you grow. And the man who chooses to grow becomes unshakable. Think about it. Most men struggle with self-doubt, with insecurity, with the fear of being alone. They distract themselves with relationships, casual encounters, and endless social validation. But the man who embraces solitude is different. He does not need another person to feel whole. His confidence comes from his ability to stand alone. There's something deeply psychological about this. Human nature craves connection, but those who depend on others for happiness are controlled by those connections. The moment you need someone else to feel good about yourself, you have given away your power. But when you are content on your own, no one can manipulate you with love, attention, or validation. A man who lives alone, truly alone, experiences something most people never will: complete self-awareness. He learns his strengths and weaknesses without the noise of others influencing him. He understands his mind, his desires, and his direction in life. He is no longer chasing temporary pleasures or external approval. He is chasing mastery. And here's the real secret. The world respects a man who stands on his own. Women respect a man who isn't desperate for attention. Friends admire the one who doesn't constantly seek validation. The man who walks alone moves differently. His confidence is real, not built on someone else's perception of him. But here's the challenge. Solitude is uncomfortable at first. When you strip away distractions, you're left with yourself, your thoughts, your fears, your deepest insecurities. Most people can't handle that. That's why they jump from one relationship to the next, from one distraction to another. They would rather stay busy than face themselves. But if you can endure that discomfort, if you can sit with yourself long enough, something shifts. You stop looking outward for answers and start looking inward. You stop seeking love just to fill a void and instead build a life that makes you feel complete on your own. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You become the kind of man who doesn't chase attention because attention naturally finds you. You don't beg for love because love respects a man who doesn't need it to survive. So ask yourself this: are you afraid of being alone, or are you afraid of meeting the real version of yourself? The truth is, solitude isn't a curse, it's a test. And those who pass it become the strongest men in the world. Stay with me, because in the next section, we'll expose the lie that society has told men about relationships, and why breaking free from it will change your life forever. From the moment a man is old enough to understand the world, he is fed the same message over and over again. He needs a relationship to be happy. Movies, music, and even the people around him reinforce this idea. They make him believe that his worth is tied to whether or not he has someone by his side, that being single means being incomplete. But here's the truth. This is one of the biggest lies ever told to men, and most don't even realize they are trapped by it. From childhood, boys are conditioned to seek approval. If he does something good, he is rewarded. If he conforms, he is praised. And as he grows older, this conditioning takes a new form. He learns that being in a relationship is another badge of success. People ask, "Do you have a girlfriend?" as if that determines his value. His friends tease him if he is alone for too long. Society labels a single man as someone who can't find love, rather than someone who chooses to walk his own path. This silent pressure shapes how most men think. They start believing that relationships are not just an option, but a requirement. That without a girlfriend, something must be wrong with them. And so they chase relationships, not from a place of strength, but from fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being alone, fear of feeling like they're not enough. And what happens? They settle. They rush into relationships that do not serve them. They ignore red flags. They tolerate things they should walk away from just to avoid the discomfort of being single. They forget that a relationship is supposed to add to their life, not define it. This is why so many men wake up one day feeling lost. They realize they have spent years in relationships that drain them instead of building them. They sacrifice their goals, their time, and even their self-respect just to fit into society's expectations. But the man who breaks free from this conditioning sees the world differently. He understands that his worth is not measured by whether or not he has a girlfriend. He realizes that happiness is not something that comes from another person, it is something built from within. And when a man starts to think this way, everything changes. He no longer settles for relationships just to fill a void. He no longer fears the opinions of others. He chooses his own path, whether that includes a relationship or not. He builds himself first because he knows that true confidence comes from what he has created, not from who he is with. Most people do not have this mindset. They live their entire lives believing they must follow the script that was handed to them. They never stop to question it. But the few who do, the ones who step back and decide to live life on their own terms, become the strongest, most independent men in the world. When a man stops chasing relationships out of fear, something powerful happens. He becomes a man who is wanted, not a man who is desperate. His energy shifts. He walks with purpose. He moves with confidence. And suddenly, people start to notice. The same society that once pressured him to fit in now starts to admire him for standing out. There is nothing wrong with love. There is nothing wrong with relationship, but they should never be built on fear. A man must never seek them to complete himself. He must already be complete on his own. And the moment he understands this, he stops being controlled by society. He stops being another man, following the same path as everyone else. He becomes a man who chooses his own destiny. Most people do not realize this, but the ability to stand alone is one of the rarest and most powerful traits a man can develop. It separates the average from the extraordinary, the weak from the strong, the dependent from the independent. A man who is always surrounded by people, who constantly seeks validation from relationships, will never fully understand himself. He lives according to the expectations of others. He shapes his decisions based on external approval. His happiness is always at the mercy of someone else's presence or absence. But the man who can stand alone, he is different. He does not fear solitude because he understands that it is in solitude where true strength is built. He does not feel lonely because he knows that loneliness is not about being alone. It is about not being at peace with yourself. Think about this. How many men do you know who can truly sit with themselves in silence? No distractions, no phone, no noise, just them, their thoughts and their reality. Most can't. They feel restless, they feel anxious, they start looking for something, anything, to fill that empty space. That is because most people have never been trained to face themselves. They have never built the mental discipline to handle solitude. They have been conditioned to believe that being alone is a weakness, when in reality it is the ultimate test of strength. A man who is comfortable alone is a man who cannot be broken. He does not fear losing people because he has already mastered the art of being whole on his own. He does not tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or toxic relationships because he knows he does not need them. And here's where the real power lies. When a man stops needing others to feel complete, he starts attracting people from a position of strength. His energy shifts. He carries himself with confidence, not desperation. He moves with purpose, not with the need to be accepted. The world respects a man who is content with himself. Women respect a man who does not beg for attention. Society admires a man who stands firm in his beliefs, who does not conform just to fit in. This is the paradox of life. When you stop chasing, things start coming to you. When you stop needing, you start attracting. But make no mistake, reaching this level is not easy. It requires sacrifice. It requires facing your deepest fears, your insecurities, and your weaknesses. It demands that you strip away the distractions and truly see yourself for who you are. And this is where most men fail. They get uncomfortable, and instead of pushing through, they run back to distractions. They jump into relationships, not because they truly want them, but because they cannot handle being alone. They seek companionship not from a place of strength, but from fear. A man who stands alone is a man who has conquered himself. And a man who has conquered himself can conquer anything. A man who lives alone without distractions has the greatest opportunity of all. He can master himself. In a world where people are constantly seeking validation, where they are addicted to noise, to attention, and to external approval, the man who turns inward discovers something most never will: control over his own mind. Most men are not in control. They are controlled by their desires, by their emotions, by their need for companionship. They react instead of thinking. They follow instead of leading. They allow the world to dictate how they feel, what they should want, and how they should live. But the man who has learned to be alone has also learned something powerful: self-mastery. He understands that discipline is the foundation of success, that without it nothing great can be built. He wakes up with purpose, not just drifting through life waiting for something to happen. He takes control of his time, his actions, and his thoughts. Most men waste their potential because they lack focus. They chase temporary pleasures, distractions, relationships that drain them, and habits that weaken them. They do not realize that every moment spent chasing external validation is a moment stolen from their own greatness. But the man who walks alone learns discipline. He learns how to control his emotions instead of letting them control him. He understands the power of patience, of persistence, of delayed gratification. He does not need immediate rewards. He plays the long game. And here's the truth: when you master yourself, you master life, because success is not about luck. It is not about talent. It is about discipline, consistency, and self-control. It is about the ability to say no to distractions, to stay focused when others are lost, to build yourself when others are too busy seeking comfort. A man who has mastered himself is a man who cannot be manipulated. He does not fall for games, for traps, for the illusions society tries to sell him. He sees through it all because he operates on a higher level. He does not react emotionally. He responds with wisdom. This is why the world respects men of discipline. They stand out, they move differently, they speak with purpose, and people feel it. There is an unshakable energy around a man who has full control over himself. He does not need to prove anything. His presence speaks for itself. And here's something most people will never understand. True freedom is not about escaping responsibilities. It is not about doing whatever you feel like. True freedom is having control over yourself. It is the ability to decide your own destiny, to move through life without being a slave to your impulses. Most men are not free. They are prisoners of their own minds, their own habits, their own need for validation. But the man who has mastered himself, he is untouchable. He moves with power, he chooses his own path, and because of that, he achieves what most never will. Most people are not strong because they have never been tested. They have spent their entire life surrounded by comfort, by distraction, by constant stimulation. They have never had to face themselves, never had to sit in silence and ask the difficult questions: who am I? What do I stand for? What am I willing to suffer for? But the man who walks alone is different. He has been through the fire. He has faced the silence, the doubts, the loneliness. And in that struggle, he has built something that most people lack, an unbreakable mindset. This is the kind of mindset that cannot be shaken by failure, by rejection, by loss. Because when you have walked alone, when you have learned to be your own source of strength, you realize something powerful. Nothing outside of you can truly break you. Most men crumble under pressure because they have spent their entire lives relying on external things to keep them strong. They rely on relationships, on approval, on success, on money. And when those things are taken away, they collapse. But the man who has built himself in solitude does not fear loss. He does not fear failure. He does not fear being misunderstood. Because he has already lived through the worst. He has faced himself. He has stripped away the illusions, the ego, the need for validation. He has learned how to endure. And this endurance gives him an advantage that most men will never have. It makes him fearless. It makes him resilient. It makes him dangerous, not in a reckless way, but in a way that commands respect. People can sense this. They can feel it in his energy, in his presence. He does not flinch when challenged. He does not seek approval. He does not follow the crowd. Because he has built something inside of him that no one can take away, unshakable confidence, the kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are. And this kind of confidence is rare, because most people pretend to be confident. They act strong, they put on a show, but deep down they are fragile. Their confidence is borrowed, it depends on external validation. But the man who has walked alone does not need to pretend. His confidence is real. It is built on experience, on discipline, on survival. It is built on knowing that no matter what happens, he will not break. This is why men who have mastered solitude often rise above the rest. They become leaders, visionaries, warriors in their own right. They see the world differently because they are not trapped by the same fears that hold others back. While most men hesitate, he takes action. While most men seek comfort, he embraces the challenge. While most men chase validation, he stands firm in his own truth. And because of that, he becomes unstoppable. Most people live their lives trapped in an invisible cage, a cage built from the opinions of others. They make decisions not based on what is best for them, but on what will make them look good. They chase success not because they truly desire it, but because they want approval. A man who walks alone does not live this way. He has freed himself from the need for validation. He does not wake up wondering what others think of him. He does not adjust his path to fit into someone else's expectation. He does not shrink himself to be accepted, and because of that he becomes powerful. Most men never reach their full potential because they are constantly looking for permission. Permission to be successful, permission to speak their mind, permission to be themselves. And in doing so, they hand over control of their lives to the opinions of people who do not even matter. But the man who walks alone understands a deep truth. Nobody is coming to give you permission. Nobody is going to hand you confidence. Nobody is going to tell you it's okay to be great now. You have to take it. You have to decide once and for all that your life is yours, that your dreams, your goals, your vision, these are not up for debate, that you do not need the world's approval to become the person you were meant to be. And the moment you make this decision, everything changes. Because when you no longer seek validation, you stop hesitating. You stop waiting for someone to approve your actions. You stop caring about the opinions of people who add nothing to your life. This is why people are drawn to men who do not seek validation. They sense something different about them, something rare. They are not desperate for attention. They do not need to prove anything. They are content with who they are, and that confidence is magnetic. Think about it. Who commands more respect? The man who tries to impress everyone, who needs to be liked, who constantly adjusts his personality to fit in? Or the man who moves forward without hesitation, who does not chase approval, who stands firm in his beliefs? The answer is obvious. The world respects men who respect themselves. Women are drawn to men who do not beg for their attention. People admire those who stand alone, who do not change themselves to fit in. This is the secret most will never understand. When you stop needing approval, you become the kind of person who naturally earns respect. Not because you try to force it, not because you demand it, but because people can sense that you are different. And that is a kind of power that cannot be bought, it cannot be faked, It is something only a man who has walked alone can develop. Most men live like slaves, not to another person, not to a system, but to their own desires. They are controlled by their urges, by their impulses, by the things that bring them temporary pleasure but long-term weakness. They chase distractions, women, entertainment, and meaningless indulgence. And they wonder why they feel lost, why they feel empty, why they never reach their full potential. But the man who walks alone understands something powerful. Discipline is the highest form of strength. A man who can control himself can control his destiny. Because the truth is, most people are weak not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because they lack control. They cannot say no to temptation. They cannot resist the easy path. They cannot focus on what truly matters because they are constantly pulled in 1,000 directions. A man who has mastered himself is different. He knows that every time he indulges in something that weakens him, he is sacrificing something greater. He understands that every moment spent chasing cheap dopamine is a moment stolen from his own greatness. And this is where real power is built. Not in trying to control others, not in trying to manipulate the world, but in controlling yourself. A man who can control his emotions will never be ruled by them. A man who can walk away from distractions, from meaningless pleasures, from anything that weakens him, he becomes unstoppable. Because when you remove the things that drain your energy, that steal your time, that cloud your mind, you gain something most men never have: clarity. Clarity about what you want, clarity about who you are, clarity about what truly matters. And with clarity comes focus. A focused man is a dangerous man. He does not waste time. He does not get lost in distractions. He does not let the world dictate his path. He moves with purpose, with direction, with unshakable confidence. Most men will never reach this level. They will stay trapped in cycles of pleasure and regret, of chasing and losing, of starting and quitting, because they never learned the truth. Self-control is the foundation of success. A man who controls himself is free from addiction, free from distraction, free from anything that takes him away from his mission. And when you are free, you become powerful beyond measure. Most people live their lives based on what others expect of them. They follow the crowd, do what's normal, and seek safety in numbers. But deep down, they know something is missing. They know they are not living the life they truly want. A man who walks alone does not have this problem. He does not seek permission. He does not follow the herd. He chooses his own path, no matter how difficult it may be. And because of that, he gains something that most men never have: real strength. Strength is not built in comfort. It is not built in following the same path as everyone else. It is built in struggle, in isolation, in making decisions that others are too afraid to make. Most men fear being alone. They fear judgment. They fear stepping away from the crowd. But the truth is, the more you try to fit in, the more you lose yourself. The more you live for others, the weaker you become. A man who walks alone understands that true strength comes from within. It is not given by society. It is not handed out by the world. It is earned through sacrifice, through discipline, through an unshakable belief in oneself. This kind of man does not bend under pressure. He does not allow others to dictate his choices. He moves forward with conviction, even when no one supports him. And this is why he stands out. People respect men who have the courage to be different. They admire those who do not compromise their values, who do not chase approval, who do not follow trends just to be accepted. The strongest men in history were not the ones who followed the rules. They were the ones who broke them, who created new paths, who refused to be controlled. And this is the mindset of a man who walks alone. He does not complain about the obstacles in his way. He does not look for an easy road. He embraces the challenge, knowing that every difficulty he faces only makes him stronger. Most people quit when things get hard. They make excuses, they blame others, they settle for mediocrity. But a man who walks alone understands that struggle is necessary, that hardship is a test, that every challenge he overcomes is another step toward his greatness. This is why he cannot be stopped, because while others look for comfort, he looks for growth. While others seek validation, he seeks mastery. While others fear being alone, he thrives in it. And in doing so, he becomes something rare, something powerful, something that the world cannot ignore. Most people cannot sit in silence. They fear it. They distract themselves with noise, entertainment, and endless social validation. They drown in conversations that add nothing to their lives. They chase constant stimulation because they are terrified of being alone with their thoughts. A man who walks alone is different. He embraces silence. He understands that true growth happens in solitude. It is in the quiet moments, away from distractions, that a man builds an unbreakable mind. Silence is not emptiness, it is power. It is the space where a man confronts his fears, his doubts, and his weaknesses. It is where he sharpens his thoughts, strengthens his discipline, and trains himself to think deeply. Most men avoid this process. They fill their days with meaningless distractions. They run from solitude because it forces them to face who they really are. But a man who is comfortable in silence becomes something rare, self-aware. Self-awareness is the key to self-mastery. When you understand yourself, when you know your strengths, your weaknesses, your desires, and your fears, you become powerful. Because most people live blindly. They react instead of thinking. They follow instead of leading. They let their emotions control them because they have never taken the time to understand them. But a man who walks alone has spent time with himself. He knows what drives him. He knows what he stands for. He knows where he is going. And because of that, he moves through life with clarity. This kind of man is not easily shaken. He does not waste energy on pointless arguments. He does not seek attention. He does not allow outside noise to dictate his inner world. He is calm, composed, and unshakable. And people notice, because in a world where everyone is addicted to noise, a man who carries silence within him stands out. He does not need to prove himself. He does not need to be loud. His presence alone demands respect. This is the difference between a weak man and a strong man. A weak man needs constant validation, constant approval, constant stimulation. A strong man can sit alone in silence and be completely at peace. And when you reach that level, you become untouchable. You no longer react emotionally to insults or criticism. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who do not matter. You no longer chase after meaningless things just to feel good in the moment. Instead, you move with purpose. You think before you act. You build your life with intention, not by accident. And that is the mark of a man who is truly in control. Most men are controlled by their emotions. They get angry when things don't go their way. They react impulsively to every challenge, every insult, every disappointment. They allow the outside world to dictate how they feel, how they think, and how they act. A man who walks alone is different. He does not let emotions control him. He controls his emotions. He understands that reacting in anger, frustration, or desperation only makes him weak. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings. It is about mastering them. It is about understanding that emotions are temporary, but the consequences of actions taken in emotional moments can last forever. A man who walks alone does not allow a bad day to make him lose focus. He does not let rejection shake his confidence. He does not let disappointment turn into self-doubt. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They speak before thinking. They act before understanding. And because of that, they make mistakes that they later regret. But a man who walks alone learns to pause. He learns to observe his emotions instead of reacting to them. He feels anger but does not let it control him. He feels sadness but does not let it break him. He feels fear but does not let it stop him. This level of control makes him powerful because the world cannot break a man who refuses to be emotionally manipulated. Think about it. How many times have you seen people lose control just because someone insulted them? How many people ruin relationships, careers, and opportunities because they could not control a moment of frustration? Weak men let their emotions destroy them. Strong men use their emotions as fuel to build something greater. A man who walks alone understands that his time, his energy, and his focus are too valuable to be wasted on temporary emotions. So he trains himself to respond, not react. He thinks before he speaks. He acts with intention, not impulse. And because of that, he moves through life with a sense of calm that others envy. This kind of man does not chase arguments. He does not seek revenge. He does not waste time proving himself to people who do not matter. Instead, he moves forward. While others waste energy on meaningless battles, he stays focused on his goals. And that is what separates him from the rest. Because in a world where most people are controlled by emotions, a man who has mastered himself is truly free. Most people live for the opinions of others. They shape their decisions based on what will make them look good. They hide their true thoughts, their true desires, their true personalities, just to fit in. But a man who walks alone is different. He does not seek approval. He does not beg for validation. He is not afraid to stand alone, even if the whole world is against him. This kind of man knows a powerful truth. The moment you stop caring about what others think, you become unstoppable. Because the truth is, no matter what you do, people will always have opinions. If you succeed, they will say you got lucky. If you fail, they will say they saw it coming. If you try something new, they will say you are wasting your time. A weak man lets these opinions control him. He holds back because he fears judgment. He stays in his comfort zone because he does not want to be criticized. He lets society tell him what he can and cannot do. But a strong man refuses to live that way. He understands that people's opinions are just words. They have no power. He does not waste his energy trying to impress others. He does not change his path just to be accepted. He walks his own road, even if he has to walk it alone. And when a man reaches this level of self-assurance, something incredible happens. The same people who once doubted him start to respect him. The same people who laughed at him start to admire him. Because deep down, everyone wishes they had the courage to live without fear of judgment. But most never do. They stay trapped in the opinions of family, friends, and society. They live small, unfulfilled lives just to avoid criticism. They waste years trying to please people who will never be satisfied. A man who walks alone is free from this trap. He understands that his life is his own. He makes decisions based on what is right for him, not based on what will make others happy. And that kind of man is rare. He does not need applause. He does not need permission. He does not wait for others to believe in him. He believes in himself. This level of self-confidence is intimidating. People will question him, they will challenge him, they will try to pull him back into the mindset of seeking approval. But he does not bend, he does not explain himself, he does not waste time trying to convince others of his worth, because he knows that the only validation that matters is the one that comes from within. Most people live their lives reacting to the world around them. They wake up and let circumstances dictate their mood. If things go well, they feel good. If things go wrong, they fall apart. But a man who walks alone does not operate this way. He does not allow external forces to shake his mindset. He has built an inner world so strong that nothing can break it. This kind of man understands that everything begins in the mind. His thoughts create his reality. His beliefs shape his future. His focus determines his destiny. And because of that, he guards his mind like a fortress. He does not allow negativity to take root. He does not entertain doubts, fears, or self-pity. He does not let the opinions of others pollute his vision. He knows that the world is filled with distractions, news designed to create fear, people who spread doubt, systems that want him to stay weak, but he rejects all of it. Instead, he feeds his mind with strength. He surrounds himself with knowledge, wisdom, and powerful thoughts. He controls what he watches, what he listens to, and what he believes, because he understands one thing: the world cannot break a man who has mastered his mind. Most people fail not because they are incapable, but because they sabotage themselves. They tell themselves they are not good enough. They allow small failures to shake their confidence. They get discouraged and give up before they even see results. But a man who walks alone does not think this way. He does not allow temporary setbacks to define him. He sees failure as a lesson, rejection as redirection, and hardship as preparation. His mind is wired differently. When others complain, he adapts. When others quit, he keeps going. When others break, he remains unshaken, because he has built something within himself that no one can take away, and that is why he stands out. While most men are controlled by their circumstances, he creates his own reality. While most men live in fear, he moves forward with unshakable confidence. While most men crumble under pressure, he thrives in it. This is the power of a strong mind. It does not need validation. It does not need reassurance. It does not seek comfort. It seeks growth. It seeks progress. It seeks greatness. And that is why a man who walks alone will always rise above the rest. Discipline is what separates the weak from the strong. It is what builds men into forces of nature. Talent is common. Intelligence is everywhere. But discipline, that is rare. A man who walks alone understands this. He knows that motivation comes and goes, but discipline stays. That is why he does not rely on feelings to take action. He does what needs to be done whether he feels like it or not. Most men wait to feel ready. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait for motivation to strike, but that moment never comes. And because of that, they stay stuck, making excuses, watching others rise while they remain the same. But a disciplined man moves regardless. He does not wait for motivation. He does not let his emotions dictate his actions. He follows a code, a set of rules he has created for himself. He wakes up early when others sleep. He works on his goals while others waste time. He sharpens his mind when others drown in distractions. He pushes forward when others complain about how hard life is, because he understands that growth does not come from comfort. It comes from discipline. He does not chase pleasure. He does not give in to laziness. He does not let distractions control him. Most men today are weak because they seek instant gratification. They want results without effort. They want success without sacrifice. They want rewards without paying the price. But a man who walks alone knows the truth. Nothing great comes easy. Everything has a cost. And discipline is the currency. While others binge-watch entertainment, he is mastering his craft. While others waste time chasing meaningless pleasures, he is building his empire. While others complain about how unfair life is, he is outworking them all. This is why he is different. This is why he stands above the rest. Because discipline is the one thing that never fails. Talent fades, luck runs out, opportunities disappear. But discipline, it lasts forever. A man who walks alone does not look for shortcuts. He does not seek the easy road. He embraces the grind, knowing that every sacrifice he makes today will pay off tomorrow. And that is why he is unstoppable. Because discipline is not just something he does, it is who he is. Most people fear being alone. They surround themselves with noise, distractions, and people to escape their own thoughts. They do not understand that solitude is not loneliness, it is power. A man who walks alone does not fear silence, he embraces it. Because in silence he finds clarity. In solitude he discovers his true self. While others drown in constant distractions, he sits with his own mind. He faces his fears. He confronts his weaknesses. He studies himself like a scientist, breaking down his flaws and strengthening his strengths. This is why he grows faster than others. He does not waste time in meaningless conversations. He does not drain his energy on people who add no value. He does not depend on external validation. He has mastered the most difficult skill in life, being comfortable alone. Because he understands one truth: a man who cannot be alone will always be controlled by the world. Most people seek relationships, friendships, and social validation out of fear. They are afraid of being forgotten, of being left behind, of being alone with their own thoughts. But in doing so, they give away their power. They become addicted to company, dependent on approval, and controlled by opinions. But a man who walks alone is free. He does not need permission to be himself. He does not need constant entertainment. He does not need distractions to escape his reality, because his reality is one he has built with intention. This does not mean he isolates himself permanently. No, he chooses solitude as a tool. He steps away from the noise to gain wisdom. He disconnects from the world to reconnect with himself. And when he does engage with people, he does so from a position of strength, not need. He chooses who enters his life. He controls the terms of his relationships. He is not desperate for attention, affection, or validation. This makes him rare. This makes him powerful. Because when a man has mastered solitude, nothing can break him. No rejection can shake him. No loss can destroy him. No failure can stop him. He stands tall, unshaken, self-sufficient. While others need constant reassurance, he moves with silent confidence. While others crumble when left alone, he thrives in his own presence. This is the power of solitude. It builds unbreakable men. It creates leaders. It forges warriors. And this is why a man who walks alone will always be ahead of the rest. A man who walks alone does not seek validation. He does not need the world's applause to know his worth. He is not controlled by the opinions of others. Most people live their lives based on what society expects. They follow trends, change their beliefs to fit in, and seek approval at every turn. They fear rejection. They fear being different. They fear standing alone. But a man who has mastered solitude does not operate this way. He does not fear standing alone because he has built himself in silence. He has faced his weaknesses. He has conquered his insecurities. He does not need anyone to tell him he is enough. He already knows. This is what makes him different. While others shape their identities based on what people say about them, he shapes his identity based on his own truth. He does not follow the crowd. He does not chase trends. He does not waste energy trying to impress people who do not even know themselves. Instead, he focuses on real power, the power that comes from knowing who he is. When a man does not seek approval, he becomes untouchable. Because no amount of criticism can break him, no rejection can shake him, no judgment can weaken his confidence. He is free. And freedom is the most powerful thing a man can have. Look at the world. Most people live as prisoners to opinions. They say what they think will get them accepted. They act in ways that will make them liked. They change themselves to fit into spaces that do not even deserve them. This is not living, this is slavery. But the man who walks alone does not play this game. He does not lower his standards for acceptance. He does not compromise his values to fit in. He does not care about being liked because he knows something that most people do not. Respect is greater than attention. And respect is never given to those who follow blindly. It is given to those who stand firm, even when they stand alone. This is why people are drawn to him. Not because he tries to impress them, not because he seeks their approval, but because he does not need them. And nothing is more powerful than a man who needs nothing from anyone. He does not chase, he attracts. He does not beg, he decides. He does not adjust himself to fit into someone else's world. He builds his own, and that is why he wins.